What's up, everybody? So as you can see, I have a new OMTech laser cutter sitting right behind me. I just got it in yesterday, and I found myself having some difficulty setting it up. So what I want to do is just make a quick video and show you guys what I did to get everything going and running properly. Okay, so what we have here is the OMTech AF 2028. 2028 is the workspace of the machine. So you have 20 by 28, right? So you get a little bit bigger working area. On each side, it has a door that opens so you can feed larger projects through, just in case you're running like a 6 foot or 8 foot or whatever piece that you need some more room, right? So I think OMTech did a great job at giving instructions overall, but they're very generic, right? And at least for me, I was confused, and I invested, to me, what was a lot of money in this machine, right? So I wanted to make sure before I even fired anything up that that was perfect, right? I didn't want anything to fail. I don't want anything to burn out. I don't want to short anything. Again, I just want to give a overview of what I did, how I set it up, how I got everything functioning. All right, so once you get your machine, you uncrate it, you get it set up where you want, open the machine up. There's a huge box inside. There's nylon cords, there's all kinds of stuff in there. So you get this bag full of stuff, you get tools, you get water pumps, you get all that kind of stuff. I'm not going over the water pump because, again, I got the industrial chiller, which is separate, and we're gonna go over that. So inside there's keys, there's little test cards, and there's all sorts of things that you're gonna need to inspect your laser. Open your machine, blue box is inside, and that should basically be everything you need for your setup. And everything in here is going to be like zip tied, or there's nylon cords and little nylon baggies, more or less, and all that comes out. Take all that out. This is zip tied down and it's wrapped up in saran wrap, so obviously take all that off. But this can come out, right? It's the standard little honeycomb plate, if you want to call it. And then other than that, it's these little, I believe they're aluminum rods, and it looks like you can move those if you need to. So I don't know how exactly this is supposed to be level or straight or whatever you want to call it, because there's nothing that catches on it. There's nowhere it sits. It just basically sits on top. If you want to get in there and measure stuff, you can, but I just did it by feel. So this triangular key obviously opens your side panels, your back panel for your larger projects you need to feed through the machine. Same triangular key opens up your electrical panel. There's nothing in here that I touched or messed with at all. Laser tube housing. So I would try to not touch the tube or anything back here unless it's absolutely necessary, right? It comes with a few foam pieces. Obviously I took them out, and then on this back cover here, there's like a little cloth bag. Take that off. Just be very careful and gentle, because there's a mirror right here, as you can see, if this will focus. This is where the laser comes out, and then it goes into your machine into other mirrors. So just below your laser tube housing, you can see I've already opened this door, and this is your back feed panel. This panel down here gives you access to the bottom of the machine. I didn't touch anything in here. There wasn't any covers, anything like that. This cover opens up, gives you access to the cutting area. This here is your front panel that opens up, that matches up with the back panel, so you can feed a large project through front to back if you need to do so. And down here gives you access to any scrap material that falls through while you're cutting a job. I would recommend just keeping this as clean as possible. On this side of the machine, you have your fume extraction, and this aluminum tubing, it's like a dryer tubing, comes in the box. There's really nothing to explain on this as far as setting it up. You literally put it over this metal tube that comes out of the machine, put your aluminum tubing over, and screw it in with the pipe clamp. It's that simple. Just make sure it's secure. You can see my exhaust tube is running to the back of my machine, The one that it comes with is short, it's only 5 foot. So this isn't gonna cut it for me. I need to obviously extend it and have it come basically out of where I have it in the garage, or I have to run it up through the roof just to get all those fumes as far away from the machine and as far away from you as possible. Okay, now to get into plugging everything up, right? You have your power cord. Mine's plugged in the back, but it's not plugged in a wall. You have a ground. This is in case you're running an outlet that doesn't have 3 prongs with a ground. So there's a wire they give you that comes in that blue tub, and you're supposed to run that wire basically run it out into the dirt somewhere. There's instructions on that. That's all in the manual. That's how I know that. I'm using a 3-prong outlet. Just a standard household outlet is all you need. Mine's connected to a GFI. Second thing here is your air pressure intake. There's nothing that plugs in there. From what I've seen, I didn't do this, and per what the manual said, it didn't recommend to do this, but this odd looking plug can actually plug in a standard 3-prong outlet. As you can see, everything's labeled, ready for you. They make it very easy, right? Moving down to the other side of the back of the machine, you have your water inlet and outlet. Again, everything's labeled for you. The top is the inlet, the bottom is the outlet. It should be the same for you. If not, it will be labeled accordingly. I have the industrial chiller that I got directly from OMTech. This is the CW5202. From what I've researched, this has 2 tanks or 2 chillers inside. With the CW5200, I think it's only 1. Okay, so let's go over the setup of this chiller. You have 2 inlets, 2 outlets. Both inlets connect. Everything here is included in your box, so you don't have to go buy any of this, minus the zip ties. So obviously your 2 inlets come together, connect with this little plastic Y piece that they give you. And this tube comes all the way around into your outlet of your machine. So keep in mind, your inlets always go to your outlets always come to your inlets. So if you follow this inlet back down, you'll see it comes to these 2 tubes that are now connected to your outlets. When you're connecting your hoses to your machine, it comes with 2 of these metal pipe clamps. Again, make sure these are pushed all the way to the back, they're seated correctly, and then make sure you have a good snug fit on these pipe clamps. I wouldn't crank it down too much to where you potentially rip or get a little tear in your hose, because that will cause you issues. If you look down here, you can see your fill line. I filled mine a little higher on the normal end, and that's only because I figured my first go, I'm putting water into this chiller, then the water has to obviously come through these tubes in the machine and come back through. So I thought that may decrease a little bit. I literally filled it up to where it's at now, and it didn't change. So if you want it a little more in the center of your normal, then I would just fill it up here. Your power source is straightforward. It plugs in with this 3-prong cable that comes with it, and you just plug that into a wall. There's a drain plug, so if you overfill your water, obviously you can let some out if you need to drain it or whatever the case may be. You have your power switch. You have 2 light indicators. If the green's on, everything's good, it's normal. If the red light is activated, there's an issue, whether it's a lack of water flow or what have you. I have not messed with any settings with this LCD screen or these buttons. Everything on that is in the manual. To my knowledge, what I read, basically it's automatic, and it keeps a recommended temperature on its own. If there's something you want to change or adjust that, just reference a manual so you can see what you need to do to program it properly. And last thing on the top, this is where you put your water. I used about 1.5 gallons of distilled water. It says deionized water is recommended or distilled water is recommended. Don't put anything else in there. No tap water, no spring water, nothing like that, because that all has minerals and it can potentially build mineral clogs in your machine or your chiller itself. What the water chiller does is it cools down that glass tube that creates your laser itself, right? So for me, if I'm gonna invest in a machine like this, I'm gonna have something to protect that laser and give me the longest life of that laser that I can get. So there's a debate whether or not you need any type of chiller. I say it's basically required, it's mandatory to have one, right? The pump it comes with, I've heard people say it doesn't cut it for this size of the machine. The smaller ones, I heard you can get away with it. So I would either get this CW5202 or get the CW5200. Another thing to note is per the manual, it tells you how far away the chiller should be from other objects. So it allows the chiller to breathe and run as smoothly as possible. So if you come to the back of my machine here, obviously I don't have it plugged in as you can see, but I just have my machine plugged up to a standard GFI protected outlet. I would recommend doing that or getting the properly rated surge protector. Say if there's a big storm coming through, you don't want anything to fry any of your electrical components in your machine. Another thing to know is the emergency stop. This comes depressed, which means it's pressed down like so. To get it up, you just turn it clockwise and it pops up. If you want to stop it, you just hit it. Okay, so we have everything set up, right? Basically off the rip, you can run a test job. So let's fire this thing up. All right, so we got the laser turned on, we got the chiller turned on. Laser's plugged into the standard wall outlet right in my GFI. I have my chiller hooked up to a completely separate outlet. Again, per the manual, they recommend that you plug the machine and the chiller into different outlets. After you hook up your chiller, check every hose, clamp, port, whatever it is. Make sure there's no leakage, right? Because that's going to cause you issues. Okay, so I threw my material down. My screen's on, everything's running. I check my water, make sure nothing's leaking. The water's flowing through the tubes as it should. So I want to make sure my emergency stop obviously isn't engaged. If it is, the whole machine's not going to start up. So obviously we know it's not engaged. Next thing you need to do is turn your laser on. Okay, so hopefully you can see this screen enough to see what I'm doing. I'm going to explain it along the way. I'm using these arrows. What I would call them is jog arrows. So whichever button you press, obviously it's going to move your laser across the machine. But when I use the arrows to move the laser or jog the laser, as you can tell, there's a red laser pointer. That's not the laser itself. That's just giving you a reference of where your laser is going to shoot. So now that I have my laser positioned, I want to focus it to the material using the autofocus. So I hit focus and I hit enter. And you can see the material comes up, pushes the material up to the laser pushes it up to this mount, and that calibrates the height of your laser. Okay, a couple things to know before you start cutting. Number one being the air intake, and you'll hear it running off to the side over here. To make sure it's working, you can either feel the air kind of being pulled through, or just go to the back of your vent and make sure you can feel air coming out. A second thing is under your laser, you'll feel it, there's air. So the important thing with the airflow coming from that nozzle, from the head of your laser, is everything you cut has fumes. And those fumes need to be pushed away from obviously your material to prevent it from combusting those fumes. Also, if those fumes aren't pushed away, they can settle or stick to and corrode the lens where your laser comes out. So you need to make sure all the fumes are being extracted when you cut. Okay, so we have our top panel closed, we have our material inside, our air intake is flowing, and the air from that nozzle is working. So let's go back to the panel. Okay, we're back at our panel. I'm gonna go to File, and it has this test file already loaded on the machine. And it shows you exactly what that file looks like. All we need to do from here is hit run, and it's going. It shows you the path of your laser as it completes the job. Simple as that. So once you get everything set up, it's nice to have a pre-built file that you can load some material in just to make sure everything's working properly. Just like that, we're almost finishing up. Obviously, this is just a test file and it's not specific to any material. This material I got was directly from OMTech site. I'm assuming it's some sort of birch wood. Okay, I took my piece off. Now I'm done. So I want to turn everything off. I'm gonna turn my laser off. Turn it off. Just like that, you have your test cut. So again, this is good to have because you set your whole machine up. You don't want to get everything set up, then you go set up some software, all the software on your computer, and you set up a big job, and next thing you know, your machine's not working properly. So it's good they have a test cut that you can use once you get everything set up and just get something done right off the rip. These cuts came from the same board, but this one looks lighter than the one that we just cut. So this was my first test cut, and it literally looked just like this one. All I did was give it a light sand with sandpaper. With this second cut that we just ran, it appears to have more defects, and that could be attributed to a couple different things. It could be the power of your laser's too high, maybe your speed's not fast enough. With every piece of material you get, it's smart to do a test cut like this just to see what you're working with so you can adjust those speeds and powers appropriately. Now we got our machine set up, we got our chiller set up, and we got a test cut in. That's just everything out of the box. We didn't even get to the software or the computer stuff yet, which I plan to make in another video. So if you want to see that, just be sure to follow along and look out for the next video. If there's anything I missed or anything that I may have done wrong or something that you would have done differently, please feel free to let me know because I'm learning just as much as you guys are now. But again, I didn't see any good videos that kind of explain the actual setup. I've just seen a few kind of generic things. I just wanted to give you guys more of an actual walkthrough so you know what you're doing and you're confident hooking up your new machine.